So, Ms. Sarandon, we've come full circle. We actually did an interview in Iowa before the caucus there. We're in California, a few days ahead of the primary. Latest polls, 3 out of the 4 have Senator Sanders down 2%. So, basically, a statistical tie. I wanted to ask you, you've campaigned for him quite a bit the last few months, and from Iowa to now, you were very emotional then. I wanted to ask, do you feel any different now? Have you seen new things? And when you campaign from the crowd, what's been the evolution that you've seen in this campaign?
Good question. You want me to hold it, or
sure.
can you do? Wow. Well, first of all, I mean, there was not a bodyguard to be seen. You know, now when he arrives, he's clearly being taken seriously because he's got an army with him. So that's changed. I'm still pretty emotional because I've been so moved by the electorate, really, by people getting so involved, by, God, so many volunteers, and just people interested in the issues and paying attention, and kids really educating themselves. And the thing that's been happened, though, is I've gotten a little hardened because I'm a New Yorker, and, you know, we had so much fraud in New York, so seeing people show up to the polls and not be able to vote who'd registered, I don't mean, you know, were they independents and missed the deadline. I mean people suddenly, Zoe Kravitz was suddenly Republican. You know, other people I know, Josh Fox, who did the documentary, voted and it didn't count. I think it was 47,000 people in Brooklyn just off the books before it even started. You know, stuff like that has really made me worried about California, where there's such a following for Bernie. But at the same time, I'm really on the whole moved that there's been so much discussion about real things. I mean, you guys have been good about covering it. Everybody still, I mean, like, you're not hearing much about the email business and the line, you know, any of those things that Bernie won't bring up because he doesn't ever get negative. But these trust issues that are coming up more and more and more and more, you know, people want a candidate that they can trust. People want money out of this process, and they want it badly. And I don't think this is a moment. I think it is a movement, and that is true. And so I'm very moved by that, and I'm just, the amount of work the people are putting in because they've had the imagination to believe and to want to be involved in something that they know is tough, but still going there. I mean, I find that still so moving, and he's got so much energy, and it just seems as if this whole thing of the lesser of two evils is people are not accepting that. And also the framing, it's just been crazy that, you know, he's favored in every poll to beat Trump by double digits, and yet that never comes up when they're talking. It's still framed Hillary and Trump, Hillary and Trump. It's just so transparent now, the fault of, you know, what Time Warner has done, her hesitancy about what I think is the most important thing, which is the environment, and this, you know, $7 million that she's gotten from oil and gas, and this idea that you can use methane as a bridge to anything but destruction. So people are being educated, and they're having the opportunity to really talk about something other than personality and jokes, and I think that's a really healthy sign. But it is kind of heartbreaking when you invest so much time and you're so excited about going to a caucus and then they shut you out, right, or they don't have you. And I think that's leading to a very volatile situation.
You know, it's interesting because working for the Young Turks, I have the liberty to actually follow the issues rather than the horse race. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I saw of all the mainstream media screw-ups, I saw an interview you did months ago with CNN and Carol Costello. It was actually right after our interview. And, you know, they use words in a kind of a drip of condescension, but, you know, but he's a democratic socialist, and you just wisely kind of pointed out, this isn't a radical thing. I mean, he's basically an FDR Democrat. I think the media hasn't kind of reminded people that FDR's policies led to the 1950s and 1960s, which was the most equitable time we've had. Do you think the media, I know Senator Sanders doesn't like harping on it, but do you think the media consciously, this whole time, made a decision to not belittle Senator Sanders, but essentially minimize him? He had more people at Donald Trump rallies. I could tell you because I've been to both. You look at the past, 2004, a lot of people think Fox News was the reason John Kerry lost with the SWIFT voting and all these things. 2008, a lot of people think the media adoration for Barack Obama helped a lot. Do you think this was a conscious choice, or do you think maybe they're just in a bubble?
I think both, but I do think it is conscious. I mean, when you know that Time Warner has given her close to $1 million for her campaign, and when you know that so many of these corporate sources are connected to then oil and gas, or connected to, I mean, it's a whole thing, and that's why I think he's so threatening. That's why he has to be minimized, because we're talking about a really significant change. That's why this election, it's going to go one way or the other, and the environment can't be helped incrementally at this point. We're way past incremental change. We're way past incremental change in terms of social justice and everybody that's falling through the cracks. So I think that the networks have a lack of imagination. Maybe they're not very good journalists, storytellers. I mean, because that is an amazing story, what's happened with Bernie Sanders, and nobody wanted to tell that story. They were all with the jokey guy, and some of them have owned up to the fact that they made Trump. I mean, by covering for ratings so much. And I know even some of the things that I've said that have then been given sensational headlines online to drive clicks, which are not true in the article or in the interview. And I've seen people react so hysterically to the headlines, and they're saying, just read it or look at it. I didn't say that. I didn't say I endorsed Trump.
Susan Sarandon endorses Donald Trump.
I mean, people were going crazy, and then I understood why we're in the bind that we're in, because people are getting stirred up by headlines, are getting stirred up by, always a social, by that attitude, by that constant attitude. I was watching on MSNBC them comparing, what Hillary Clinton had said about her emails with what was actually found. And I thought they were going to burst into tears. They were actually audibly sighing. And Micah who was the only one who was trying to almost say she lied. She was like, Andrea, I don't know. I mean, heartbreaking, to see this happen, and yet I don't see it again now, anybody talking about it. So I think that we've gotten so far away from journalism, from having discussions. And when you see what happens in Europe, when someone says something and it's not true, then someone pushes and someone asks further and someone gets information, and the dumbing down of the electorate has taken place. I mean, and I think that there's profit in that for somebody.
CNBC and CNN are in part responsible?
Yeah, I think all the establishment news sources are. The New York Times has been terrible. I mean, and it's constant framing that's misrepresenting things, And I mean, he was supposed to leave after Iowa. He was unelectable. How can that help? Get people a choice, give him name recognition, let him find out. And that's why the millennials were way ahead, because they were online. They weren't watching network news, I think more. How are your ratings? You've been getting more and more people?
Well, Cenk is the leader, but I do know among age 18 to 24, we are kicking ass and have beat CNN.com, among others, for many months. But what I find interesting is when you look at Senator Sanders, I think Occupy Wall Street, a lot of people say it was a failure. I don't think so, because I think the principles and the anger within that, I think it kind of transformed with a leader. I know Senator Sanders says, this is more than about me, and I think that's true. But I think Occupy Wall Street was kind of a reaction to really a choice the Democratic Party made starting in the late 1970s and in the 1980s to shift from the New Deal era and working class people to wealthy suburbanites. No disrespect to them, but Thomas Franks just wrote a great book about that.
It's crazy that the DNC has been downright insulting and patronizing to these. I mean, there are more independents than there are Democrats. And all of these people who signed up to be part of this process that have been shut out, and at best shut out but insulted. I mean, I know from talking to them that they're just like, if you think I'm ever going to vote Democrat again, why would they turn their backs on something that could actually bring the party into the present day? I think they are in a bubble. I mean, if I had been there, and this will probably be the headline, I would have booed Barbara Boxer. I mean, you cannot talk to people that way, and you can't frustrate them when they're trying to participate in the process, and you just say, okay, well, you don't count.
What I found interesting about Barbara Boxer, not just Barbara Boxer, but the whole shebang that happened in Nevada. You know, Barbara Boxer was talking, saying nice things about Secretary Clinton, which is her right, and Senator Sanders' supporters booed. I mean, it's a political rally. I don't know if that's a violent thing. And then she started kind of taunting them, you know, you're booing America, these things. But she went out and said she was scared for her security.
As she was blowing kisses, right, leaving the stage. I know. See, this is where, you know, so many phones. Clearly, if chairs had been thrown or people had rushed the stage, there would have been a video of it. Everybody has a phone. Everybody was looking for that. And yet the story for days, until they exhausted the possibility with no backup, was, what can we do about these violent Bernie supporters, you know? And the senator doesn't even want to speak negatively. That's not his thing. You know, he's all about inclusion. He's never, ever going to tell anybody they should be violent. And yet, you know, somebody told me, I mean, I saw online where, you know, a call to arms for the Democratic Convention mentioning specifically my name. Bring your billy clubs and let's get those Bernie bots and let's get rid of Susan Sarandon. You know, I'm not going to go and make that a big thing about her. You know, I mean, so the networks definitely picked up on that and went on about it, and that becomes the thing that everybody talks about. And so they're responsible for that, for picking up that story and not talking about other things.
I also think it's interesting. Cenk actually just did a segment on this. Reliable Sources Sunday did a segment on whether the media has been fair to Senator Sanders, and they had 3 establishment media members, New York Times, NPR, Associated Press, and not a Sanders supporter. You see on MSNBC, I think it was last night, Chris Matthews, who's pretty much had sleepovers with Hillary Clinton in interviews, Barney Frank, hates, and you know, campaign manager Jeff Weaver. You know, Fox News, in the right circumstance, actually deserves criticism, but a lot of these places haven't been balanced. Broader than that, though, there seems to be, everyone talks about the revolving door between corporate America, Washington, lobbyists, the banks, but there's also a revolving door between media and the parties. Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who's been along on an MSNBC fixture as a guest, she goes on and she's been clearly, I believe, not impartial, and she gets the kid glove treatment. There's not a lot of coverage of her primary challenge. Do you think that the establishment and the media, I mean, not that they're having meetings together, but there's kind of a wink-wink going on?
That's just the way it's been. And I mean, when you look at how many superdelegates are also lobbyists for exactly the people that she says she's going to fight against, you know, you have to question that too. I mean, the fix is on, and people see it now. That's the thing that's really good, is that for better or worse, you know, those revolving doors, Monsanto, you know, glyphosate. Now finally everybody's waking up to glyphosate. She's been selling that. She's been selling fracking. Okay, she apologizes about Iraq, but then she goes and goes into Honduras, Libya, Syria. I mean, so she hasn't figured it out yet. You know, these things are hard for me as a mother to accept. As a woman, I find it even harder. I expect more of a woman. You know, I expect her to protect the environment. I don't want someone who just wants power. I want someone who protects my kids. I want someone I can trust. I want someone who's consistent. I want someone who is after civil liberties and social justice, you know, and so it broke my heart when, because I was a New Yorker, I supported her to be a senator, you know. And then one by one, I find out all these things, and I don't think that the public knows. Whenever I talk to people who, you know, especially women, and I say, okay, well, because I like to have conversations. I want to know, what do you find attractive about her policy? They can't answer. They can't answer.
I had that problem too.
They don't have reasons. They have, I just like her, and, she's been through so much, and I don't understand the gay community. She was so slow out of the gate for them. So lots of times it is something that has to do with our conditioning. It has to do with what kind of, authoritarian, do you respond to that? Does that make you feel safe? Do you want to know? I mean, it's hard when when I have conversations sometimes on Twitter and people are trying, these facts keep coming out about Clinton, and then they're kind of like, well, but she did. And I say, look, I understand. It's hard when you want to believe in somebody and you find something out. You want to give her every shot. You want a woman, I understand that, but wouldn't it be great to get the right woman? Wouldn't it be great to get somebody? Your daughter doesn't have to be rich or married to a president, doesn't have to play these games. Let's get the money out. And I just can't stress enough that the reason I'm here in California, first of all, environmentally, this is how the planet goes, depending on what goes in California. And Jerry Brown, I don't know what he's thinking. But we're at a moment in history where there actually could be change. We actually could get a lot of the money out of lawmaking decisions, war decisions, environmental decisions. We could do the right thing. So how can you not give it everything you can, because after this you're going to have to explain to your kids how that happened if it didn't. And that's where I am now. It's just like I have to try to get people information, not tell them what to do, but at least get them information that they're not getting through the establishment media.
And you rose to prominence, obviously, as a terrific actress, but in politics you were very much against the Iraq War leading up to it. Donald Trump says he was too, but that's a little dubious. Hillary Clinton today is giving a speech basically lambasting him as dangerous for foreign policy. I get emails all the time from her campaign saying the same thing. You're not going to see much media coverage about Hillary Clinton's foreign policy.
Well, there you go. This is the question. I believe in a way she's more dangerous, except they're both talking to Henry Kissinger apparently lately, so maybe he's going to, depending on if he brings Kissinger in. But her record, she did not learn from Iraq, and she is an interventionist, and she's done horrible things, and very callously. I don't know if she's overcompensating or what her trip is, but that scares me. I think we'll be in Iran in 2 seconds. It frightens me.
She lobbied President Obama to take action with Syria.
Syria, and what happened in Libya, and all these emails are very detrimental. And her attitude is also. It doesn't even seem to be difficult for her to do these things. So I would be curious to see if anybody brings up anything. But this is what we're fed. Oh, he's so dangerous. He's so dangerous. Seriously, I'm not worried about a wall being built in Mexico, paying for it. He's not going to get rid of every Muslim in this country. Has he made it the norm to be racist and to vent these kind of un-American things? Yes. But seriously, I don't know what his policy is. I do know what her policies are. I do know who she's taking money from. And I do know that she's not transparent. And I do know that nobody calls her on it.
I want to look at Senator Sanders for a second. Obviously, you're speaking for him today, so it's tough to be critical. But I wanted to ask you, a lot of people, a lot of fans of his tweet me sometimes saying, I wish Bernie would take off the gloves. And I get the response, that's not who he is. But do you see any points in the campaign where maybe thinking it would have been personal to go after her? For example, the Brooklyn debate, he was asked, can you give one example of quid pro quo on her part? He kind of went back to his general Wall Street donations, but not as specific when there are several. Do you think that he could have been a little bit more specific or a little bit more aggressive?
Yeah, I wish sometimes. I do. I'd be standing there going, but tell them. Maybe they don't know it, But again, like you said, that's not who he is. He doesn't want to be divisive in that sense. And I think that I don't know. I don't know if he promised Obama when he went to meet him that he would not give. I don't know. I think she's ruining her chances. I don't think he could do a bigger job of it than she's already doing. But yeah, there have been times when I've been frustrated and say, but you're not telling them that, this, and this, and there are so many examples of that. And it was just outrageous when she's against the 4 women and children, poisoning water, and doesn't support the $15 minimum wage. That's simple. And then runs up to be next to Cuomo when it's signed. And she's the one, her State Department was the one that knocked down the minimum wage in Haiti when that came up, and they were trying to get more than, I think, 40 cents an hour or something. She got it knocked down. I mean, this is not pro-women. There's so many cases of things that, and I try to, and I'm supposed to make it clear that bringing up any of these things is my own personal thing, and that it is not the senator. And I do that with you and say, no, he is not going to be talking.
This message is not endorsed by Bernie Sanders.
It is not endorsed by Bernie Sanders because he doesn't want to call her a liar. He doesn't want to. But there, as Andrea Mitchell said the other day, well, it doesn't add up. We can say definitely it does not add up. Her timeline, everything.
2 questions on the future. A lot of progressives are kind of, I wouldn't say mad, but dumbfounded that Senator Warren has not made an endorsement of Senator Sanders. It seems like she might be a little bit younger, maybe prettier version of him in terms of their policies and their passions. I can't get in her head, but it seems that she's kind of played it neutral, maybe for political reasons, this and that. Many people see her as a potential, carrying the torch from Bernie if he doesn't become president. Were you kind of surprised or had any thoughts on her positioning during the campaign?
I think anybody that knows her knows that she endorses Bernie. I think that it is, of course it's political. Just like Cory Booker, who's against privatized prisons, endorsed Hillary Clinton, who's a big supporter of privatized prisons, and now his name is suddenly being thrown around for the vice president. But she would never be on a ticket with Hillary Clinton. She might be on a ticket with Bernie Sanders, but she's never going to be on a ticket with Hillary.
Morning Joe crowd seems to disagree with you. They were talking about it the other day.
And said what? That
they could see that happening for her to really try to bring over the Bernie folks.
No. I mean, the Bernie folks would just be disappointed in her. That's not going to do it. There's no way that she could. She's somebody that has a moral core also, and she's not going to sacrifice that core for political gain. And she could never accomplish what she can accomplish now as a vice president. I mean, the vice president's a pretty lame job, really, if you look at the job. So I think she's much more valuable where she is, and she's in that shoot, whatever happens, that she could be. I mean, she'd be a great president, and she does call names, and she has taken on Wall Street, and so she's, tells the truth. And I think anybody that really knows Elizabeth Warren knows that she's on Bernie's side, and I don't know that for what she would lose in terms of her traction politically that she needs to endorse him. Maybe she's waiting until he gets the nomination and then she'll hop on on his bandwagon.
Well, it seems like part of why you're so passionate about Senator Sanders is he's authentic. So in a way, were you disappointed when Senator Warren obviously talks these policies and these passions in a similar manner, but didn't really walk the walk in terms of putting her force?
Yeah, but again, I don't know at this point what she would add that I'd rather have her in reserve. I don't.
They added a lot in Massachusetts.
Yeah, I guess, I understand where she's coming from, and I understand why she didn't run. I mean, she knows enough about the way things are that she would know, But there's no way that she. I mean, I would really lose my breath if I felt that she suddenly turned around and would even think about running on a ticket with Hillary. Because all these people that think that they, are against fracking, but they don't want to endorse Bernie because they think she's going to be the nominee, and so then they're going to get in tight with her and change her mind, are naive and egomaniacal, because they're not going to change her mind, and they're not going to change her mind enough to make anything happen. So it's pure political gain, the Cory Bookers who go against what they're talking about, thinking that they'll be able to. I don't think that happens that way. I think money speaks much louder than just waving to the crowd and being in the same airplane.
And my final question is, when you look at, you kind of caused headlines because they painted you as a Bernie or Buster, and, you're endorsing Trump. But when you look at the young people that have just dominated a lot of these rallies that you've been to. If you could go back 5 years to your early 20s, how do you think, if you were one of them, how would you feel, do you think, about this, they'll fall in line, the party unity? If Senator Sanders is not the president, there's still a chance he will be, but if he's not, do you see from your interactions, and how do you think you would feel? Because like so many times when young people get so motivated about something and it doesn't happen, they could get deflated. Where do you see his movement carrying on in the event it doesn't end up in the White House?
I think that it is a movement, and I think that we have to work on the Senate and the House, and he's always said that, and he said this is a long process, and I think it is a movement, and I respect them for not wanting to vote for her, and not wanting to send the message that they're okay with the way that things are, and I think that they have been ignited, and they were not going to get put out just, they've already been disappointed, but I think they understand that it's a fight for their lives, more than us, more than me. Well, I'm much older than you are, but, that is their earth and their future and their world. And I've heard many of them say, just there's no way they think I'm going to join the Democratic Party, ever again vote Democrat. They're crazy. And that's where I think there's been a big mistake, because I don't know how this party got so far away from FDR and just really is Republican interest now. And so I don't know if they'll be in third party. Maybe the independent party, will end up being stronger because people will go, okay, I've had it with that, with all these old Democrats, I've had it.
Do you think they're wrong because you look at all the establishment pundits, lawmakers, say they need to see the big picture because if they want to be bratty about it, Donald Trump is going to be president.
They do see the big picture. It's the pundits that are not seeing the bigger picture. They are not paying attention to the environment. They are not paying attention to all these revolving doors that you're talking about between corporate interests, and they don't want to see it. They're playing it safe. They don't want change. They don't really, in their heart of hearts, they're scared of change. My money's on the young folk. My money's on the Young Turks. My money is on making noise. That's the way something's going to happen. That's the way this country happened. That's nobody even thought to unite for a while. I mean, we're at a major, major turning point, and my hat goes off to them. And okay, this will be the headline now, but they feel all right. You're going to get who you deserve. You're going to get who you wanted. We'll be fine. So we'll see how this plays out. But they're not going to give up. I think that Obama made a mistake not to keep his grassroots people really working. But I think there's so much unrest with, Black Lives Matter has just shot up and has done amazing things and has made people deal with a lot and has, the militarization of the police needs to be looked at and in all the cities, and that's linked to poverty and that's linked to environment. Flint, that water crisis is all over the United States. So unless those things go away, the discontent is not going to go away, and I think they're energized and they're ready, and they're going to be a force that brings me joy to watch how educated they are and how they know. You can't apologize for the crime bill and just say, okay, I'm sorry. You can't apologize for Iraq and then go on and do what the other things you're doing. We don't believe you. No.
On behalf of the Young Turks, we just wanted to express our condolences for your brother, and from what I read, he was a very, very good man. So thank you for taking the time today.
Thanks.